There's a special kind of silence that exists after your heart doesn't just break, but shatters into a million unrecognizable pieces. I was standing in the walk-in closet of my dead husband's custom-built home, staring at a rose gold lace dress I would never wear, listening to that silence. My daughter, my Sophia, had just told me she was married. And when I, the woman who financed her entire life, asked why I wasn't there, she sighed and said, "Oh, Mom, it was a family. Only ceremony. We wanted to avoid the drama." She called my love drama. She called my love. And in that moment, a new version of me was born. A version they never saw coming. This isn't a story about a sad old woman. This is if you've ever been used as a stepping stone, a wallet, a convenience by someone you'd give your last breath for. If you've ever felt the cold, hard shock of betrayal that freezes the tears in your eyes and replaces them with pure, undiluted resolve, then you understand the fire that fuels the story. This is about the moment a mother's love transforms into a force of nature. Hit subscribe and prepare for a tale of revenge so satisfying you'll want to listen twice. My name is Maeve Delaney. To understand the depth of the fall, you have to see the height we once lived at. It wasn't just a happy family. It was a fortress of love built by my husband, James. He wasn't just a man. He was an institution. A brilliant, quiet structural engineer who believed in integrity, in things that lasted. He didn't just build bridges and skyscrapers. He built a life for us, from the ground up. He designed our house with his own hands. Every beam, every window placement was a love letter to our future. The garden was his sanctuary. He'd come home from managing multi-million-dollar projects and get dirt under his fingernails, tending to his roses with a focus that was almost holy. Sophia was our miracle. After 3 miscarriages and a diagnosis that said I'd never carry to term, she was our defiant, beautiful victory. We were careful with her. Too careful, maybe. We poured all our hope, all our gratitude, all our fear into her. She was the center of our universe, and we orbited her, 2 adoring planets caught in her gravity. James called her his little CEO because she always knew how to get what she wanted with a smile. We never taught her the word no. That was our original sin. When James died, the universe went silent. A massive heart attack alone in his office. No warning. The foundation of my world vaporized. The grief was a physical presence. A weight on my chest that made it hard to breathe. Sophia was 19, away at college. She came home, a beautiful, broken stranger. We clung to each other in this echoing house, 2 ghosts haunting the same halls. I made a silent vow to James. I would be everything. I would be the mother and the father. I would be the unshakable foundation. But a foundation's purpose is to be built upon, to bear weight without complaint. And Sophia began to build a palace on my back. The change was subtle at first. The grief that had hollowed her out seemed to fill back up with something harder, more ambitious. She needed her life to be perfect, glossy, a testament to the fact that she had overcome the tragedy. It was a performance, and I was her most loyal audience member. Then came Jason Miller. He slid into her life like a virus. Handsome, sure, with the kind of practiced charm that feels like a performance. He called himself a visionary and a disruptor. In reality, he was a professional son, latching on to wealthy families and leeching off their goodwill and capital. He had a new sure thing every 6 months, a crypto token, an NFT project, a subscription box for artisanal firewood. All of them failed. All of them required seed funding. I saw it instantly, the emptiness behind his eyes, but Sophia was enchanted. He validated her desire for a life of curated luxury, and I was so terrified of being the reason she left, of being truly alone with James's ghost, that I smiled. I welcomed him. I wrote checks. I laid down another layer of foundation to bear his weight. The financial bleeding started as a trickle and became a hemorrhage. It began with a crisis. A phone call, her voice trembling with manufactured panic. "Mom, I'm so embarrassed to ask, but our rent check bounced. Jason's big client payment is stuck in some international banking limbo, and the landlord is threatening eviction if we don't have $3,000 by Friday. It's just so humiliating." $3,000. My stomach clenched, but the fear in her voice, it was a hook in my heart. "Oh, honey, don't worry. I'll take care of it." I logged into the savings account, the one James had labeled our future, and I sent the money. The relief in her voice was my reward, a drug I craved. You're my hero, Mom. I don't know what we'd do without you." That was the first thread, and I pulled it. The crises became a monthly ritual. The limbo was a permanent state for Jason's finances. Then came the investments, the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that required a $5,000 injection. The vintage Chesterfield sofa that was an heirloom piece. the non-negotiable couples therapy to work through the stress, which I now realized was the stress of maintaining their web of lies. I was a ghost in my own life, haunting bank tellers and wiring transfers. My world shrank to the four walls of my house and the glowing screen of my online banking portal. My friends, Gloria and the others, they fell away. Canceled lunches, missed book clubs. "It's a Sophia emergency," I'd say, and they'd nod with a pity I was too blind to see. Then the wedding. For a full year, it was the golden carrot dangled in front of me. It was the promise of redemption, of a return to the family I had lost. She pulled me deep into the fantasy. We toured venues, a castle on the Hudson that cost $30,000 for a Saturday, a minimalist gallery in Soho where the chairs alone were $200 apiece. She'd send me Pinterest boards of flower arrangements that cost more than my monthly mortgage. "Wouldn't Dad have loved to see me here?" She'd whisper, and the ghost of James would stir, and I'd nod, my throat too tight to speak. The dress shopping was the point of no return. The boutique was a temple of aspiration. Sophia emerged from the dressing room in a Celia Laurent gown. It wasn't just a dress. It was a statement. Sculpted ivory silk, hand-beaded with crystals that caught the light like tears, a train that flowed like a river of milk. She looked like a queen, a stranger. "This is it, Mom. This is the one. I feel complete." The consultant, a woman with the serene smile of a sphinx, glided over. "It's a Celia Laurent, a piece of art. Truly a once-in-a-lifetime dress." I glanced at the tag. $4,200. The number burned itself into my retina. This was a chunk of the life insurance money, the money that was supposed to be my buffer against the world. "Sophia, that's more than my car is worth." "This isn't a car, Mom. This is my wedding dress. This is what Dad would have wanted for me. The best. Don't you think I deserve the best?" There it was, the James card, the guilt card, the you owe me card. She played them all at once. I looked at her, my miracle child, standing in a $4,200 masterpiece, and I didn't see the little girl who loved tea parties. I saw a beautiful hollow sculpture, but the fantasy was too seductive. I was in too deep. I took out my credit card, the one I used for emergencies, and I handed it over. The sound of the transaction processing was the sound of my own capitulation. I bought my own dress the next week. A beautiful rose gold lace sheath. I hung it at the front of my closet, and for months it was a talisman, a symbol of a future where I would stand beside my daughter, where the three of us, me, her, and James's memory, would be a family again. I stepped into my foyer, and the scene in my living room was a stage tableau of concern. Sophia was perched on the edge of my reading chair, looking pale and wan. Jason was pacing by the fireplace, the picture of a worried husband. And the man from the Mercedes, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost $5,000, was sitting on my sofa, a leather-bound folio on his knee, calmly assessing the value of my possessions. "Mom!" Sophia launched herself at me, arms outstretched for a hug. I took a deliberate step back and she stumbled off balance. "Where have you been? We've been sick with worry. You haven't answered any of our calls." I looked past her, my gaze locking onto the stranger. "Who are you, and what is your business in my home?" The man stood offering a smile that was all veneer. "Mrs. Delaney, I'm Robert Thorne of Thorne, Buckley and Sterling. I'm an attorney. Your family is deeply concerned about your recent, erratic behavior." I repeated, my voice flat and cold. "Yes," Jason chimed in, his tone dripping with a syrupy, false concern that made my skin crawl. "Cutting us off like that, out of the blue. It's not like you, Maeve. We're thinking, maybe it's the stress of living alone. Or..." He paused for dramatic effect. "Well, my grandmother had vascular dementia." The very first sign was financial irresponsibility. The audacity was breathtaking. They were calling me financially irresponsible. Robert Thorne placed a single crisp document on my coffee table. "This is a petition for an emergency temporary guardianship. Given your demonstrated inability to manage your financial affairs and your increasing social isolation, the court would grant Sophia the legal authority to protect you and your assets from your own poor judgment." I looked at my daughter. Her eyes were wide, but beneath the performance, I saw a hard, calculating glint. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about her supply line being cut. "Get out," I said, my voice low and steady, laced with a venom they had never heard from me. "Mom, please, be reasonable." Reasonable. The roar erupted from a place of decades of suppressed anger, of 1,000 silent sacrifices. Reasonable was watching $87,000 of my dead husband's life bleed into your bank account. Reasonable was being told I wasn't family enough to watch you get married in a $4,000 dress I bought. Get the hell out of my house before I call the police and have you charged with trespassing, burglary, and attempted fraud. The silence was absolute. Robert Thorne's smug smile had vanished, replaced by a flicker of surprise. Jason looked like a child who'd been caught stealing. Sophia's face contorted. The mask of the concerned daughter shattered, revealing the furious, entitled woman beneath. "You miserable, selfish old cow!" she shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. "This is my house. That is my money. Dad would be disgusted with you. You're going to die alone and rotting in this museum, and I will make sure they bury you in a pauper's grave before I let you rest next to him." She stormed out, followed by a pale and shaken Jason. Robert Thorne collected his folio, giving me a long, cold look. "This isn't over, Mrs. Delaney. We have considerable resources." "I'm sure you do," I replied, my voice sweet as poison. "I suggest you send your bill to my daughter. I hear her financial situation is about to become rather interesting." The moment the door clicked shut, I didn't collapse. I got to work. My first call wasn't to a lawyer. It was to a man named Leo, a private investigator recommended by an old, discreet friend from my past. "His name is Leo," my friend said. "He's ex-intelligence. He's a ghost, and he's expensive. But if you need to know the truth, the whole unvarnished truth, he's the only man to call." I met Leo in a nondescript diner 20 miles from my home. He was a man in his late 50s who could have been a mid-level manager or a long-haul trucker. Completely unremarkable. I showed him the spreadsheet. I told him the story, leaving nothing out. He listened, no judgment, just absorbing facts. "I need to know everything," I said, my voice steady. "Their real finances, their secrets, their vulnerabilities. I need leverage. I need to know what they're truly afraid of." Leo took a slow sip of his black coffee. "Consider it done, Mrs. Delaney." While Leo delved into their shadows, I fortified my own life. I hired a lawyer, a brilliant, fierce woman named Benita Cruz, who had built her reputation eviscerating predatory guardianship cases. "They've made a fatal error, Maeve," Benita said, her eyes sharp as daggers. "They've shown their hand too early, and it's a weak one. We're not just going to defend, we're going to annihilate." I became a fortress. High-tech locks, a security system with cameras and motion sensors, a new private banking relationship at a different institution. But I also built a life that was a living, breathing defense. I reconnected with Gloria in my old circle. I didn't just rejoin the book club, I hosted it. I took a pottery class and made a shockingly lopsided vase. I started volunteering at the local library, reading to children. My calendar was full. My life was vibrant. It was the perfect antithesis to their claims of my isolation and decline. 2 weeks later, Leo called. We met in the same diner. He slid a thin, unassuming manila folder across the table. "It's all in there," he said, his voice low. "It's quite a story, more than you paid for." I opened the folder, and the world I thought I knew dissolved. It was far worse than I could have imagined. The intimate wedding, the courthouse ceremony was a legal formality. The real event was a lavish secret reception at the Gilded Elm, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the state. A reception I had partially funded through a $5,000 non-refundable venue deposit Sophia had begged me for months earlier. The guest list was 75 people. Jason's entire extended family, all their friends, his business contacts. The photographer's invoice was in the folder, $5,000. There were even quotes for a live band and a fireworks display. Jason's business. It wasn't just a failure. It was a house of cards built on quicksand. He was running a sophisticated Ponzi scheme, using new investor money to pay returns to old investors, while skimming a lavish salary for himself and Sophia. Assisi was already making quiet inquiries. He was not just in debt. He was facing decades in federal prison. The ultimate betrayal. Leo had accessed their cloud storage. He found a video, a toast from their secret reception. Jason was holding a glass of champagne, his arm around my daughter. And there they were on my screen. Jason said, "I just want to thank my beautiful wife, Sophia, for having the vision to see our future together, and a special thanks." Well, an indirect thanks to her mother, Maeve. Let's be real, folks. This party, this dress, this loft we live in, none of it would be possible without the bank of Mom and Dad. So let's raise a glass to Maeve, the world's most generous absentee landlord. The room erupted in laughter. The camera panned to Sophia, who was laughing, clinking her glass with his. She looked right at the camera, a smirk on her face, and raised her glass in a mock toast. Then Leo showed me the texts. From the day after the wedding, Sophia, text. "My mom is blowing up my phone. So pathetic." Jason, text. "Just ignore her. She'll cave. She always does. She's terrified of dying alone. We just have to wait her out. The old bat can't live forever, and when she kicks it, this whole estate is ours. It's just a waiting game." I closed the folder. I felt nothing. The heartbreak was gone, evaporated by the white-hot heat of this new truth. All that was left was a cold, clear, strategic purpose. "They've handed us a nuclear arsenal," Benita said when I showed her the contents. "But we're not going to launch it yet. We're going to let them march their army to our gates, and then we'll reveal we have the bomb." The guardianship hearing was scheduled. Sophia, Jason, and Robert Thorne arrived looking confident, armed with their perjured witnesses and their flimsy petitions. They had no idea they were walking into a trap I had spent weeks meticulously preparing. The day of the hearing, I dressed with deliberate symbolic intention. I wore the rose gold lace dress, the one I'd bought for the wedding I was never meant to attend. It was my armor, my battle standard. The courtroom was packed. Benita had ensured that certain reporters, those with a nose for financial scandal, were present. Benita was a maestro of legal warfare. She systematically dismantled their case. Piece by piece, she presented my meticulous financial records, my doctor's testimony of my robust mental and physical health, affidavits from my friends about my active, engaged social life. Then she called me to the stand. Robert Thorne approached for cross-examination, oozing condescension. "Mrs. N. Delaney, this sudden, drastic, and frankly cruel severing of ties with your only child, it seems to any objective observer pathological. A loving mother does not abandon her child in their time of need." I looked him dead in the eye, my gaze steady. A loving child does not secretly get married and tell her mother she's not immediate family. A loving child does not mock her mother as the world's most generous absentee landlord in a wedding toast to 75 guests. And a loving child certainly does not refer to her mother as the old bat in text messages, treating her impending death as a financial windfall. The gallery erupted in gasps and murmurs. Thorne was visibly thrown. "That's a vicious and unsubstantiated allegation." "Is it?" I said, my voice cool and clear. "Or is it simply the unvarnished truth? You see, Mr. Thorne, I haven't abandoned my child. My child abandoned me the moment she decided my only value was as a line of credit. I am merely closing the account," he floundered, trying to regain control. "Your obsession with money is noted by the court, but your daughter is here out of love and concern." "Love?" I gave a small, icy smile. "Let's talk about love then. Let's talk about the $87,650. But more importantly, let's talk about the $4,200 wedding dress I bought for a wedding I was explicitly excluded from. Is that love, or is it financial predation?" Thorne was losing, and he knew it. He tried one last, desperate, ugly move. "The court can clearly see you are an angry, bitter, and vindictive woman." Benita shot to her feet. "Objection, argumentative and badgering? Sustained," the judge said, glaring at Thorne. "Counsel, control yourself." It was Benita's turn. "Your Honor, the petitioners have portrayed my client as a confused, vulnerable, isolated woman. I would now like to present evidence that reveals who the truly vulnerable parties in this relationship have been, and the true, criminal motivation for this predatory lawsuit." Benita approached the bench. "With the court's permission, I have evidence pertaining to the petitioner's own financial dealings, which we believe are the driving force behind this attempt to seize control of Mrs. Delaney's assets." The judge, now intensely curious, nodded. What followed was a public execution. Benita entered the private investigator's findings into evidence. She projected the damning text messages onto the screen for the entire court to see. The old bat can't live forever. Sophia's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Jason had gone a pasty, sickly white. Then Benita played the video. Jason's toast, the laughter, Sophia's mocking gesture. The courtroom was in an uproar. Then Benita played her trump card. She called a witness to the stand, a man I'd never seen before. He was nervous, sweating through his cheap suit. "Please state your name for the record." "David Chen. Mr. Chen, did you invest money with the petitioner, Jason Miller?" "Yes," the man said, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and anger. $75,000, my life savings. He promised me a 25% return. It was a lie. He's wiped me out. He's a con man." Benita entered document after document, bank records, falsified prospectuses, emails, detailing Jason's sprawling Ponzi scheme. The scale was breathtaking. He had swindled over $1 million from ordinary people. The courtroom descended into chaos. The judge slammed his gavel repeatedly. Robert Thorne looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. In her closing argument, Benita was magnificent, a force of righteous fury. "Your Honor, this is not a case about a mother's mental state. This is a case about a daughter's profound moral bankruptcy and a son-in-law's criminal enterprise. The petitioners are not protectors. They are predators of the most despicable kind. They financially and emotionally drained Mrs. Delaney while secretly despising her. And when she finally found the strength to say no more, they launched a legal assault to seize the last of her resources to prop up their own fraudulent lifestyle. They are not concerned about her well-being. They are concerned about their collapsing house of cards and their impending indictments. Do not let them use this court, Your Honor, as their personal bailout fund. The judge didn't retire. His face was a thundercloud. Petition denied, he boomed, his voice filled with contempt. This case represents a shocking abuse of the judicial process. The petition is not only denied with prejudice, but I am granting a permanent restraining order against both petitioners. Furthermore, I am referring all evidence of Mr. Miller's financial activities to the State Attorney General and the CC for criminal prosecution. And I am ordering the petitioners to pay all of Mrs. Delaney's legal fees, investigative costs, and court costs. The gavel fell like a headsman's axe. But my revenge was not yet complete. This was just the end of the first act. As Sophia and Jason scrambled out of the courtroom, pursued by reporters shouting questions about the Ponzi scheme, I remained seated, perfectly calm. My final master stroke had already been set in motion. The day after the hearing, the story was all over the local news. Digital entrepreneur accused of Ponzi scheme in dramatic courtroom reveal. Jason was arrested that afternoon. Their assets were frozen. The loft, the furniture, the cars, all of it was seized by the feds. But I had one more move, the most personal one. I had already met with my estate planner. That afternoon, I signed new documents in Benita's office. My entire estate, the house James built with his own hands, my remaining savings, all of it, was bequeathed to establish the James and Maeve Delaney Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to funding literacy programs for underprivileged children and providing legal support for victims of elder financial abuse. Not a single cent would ever go to Sophia. A process server, at my request, delivered a copy of the new will to the seedy motel where Sophia had been forced to relocate. A final, formal notice of her permanent disinheritance. The phone call I received that night was the most satisfying, cathartic sound of my entire life. It wasn't filled with rage or threats. It was the raw, broken sound of utter, absolute defeat. Mom, please, I have nothing. Jason's in jail. They took everything, the apartment, my car, my clothes, even my wedding ring. I'm staying in a motel that rents by the hour. I have no one. You were right about everything. I was horrible. I was a monster. Please, I'm your daughter, your little girl. Please don't leave me like this. I listened to her sob. I felt a profound and absolute stillness. No schadenfreude, no pity, no residual love. Just the quiet emptiness of a battlefield after the war is won. No, Sophia. A daughter is someone you nurture, protect, and love unconditionally. What you are is a lesson I learned at great cost. A very, very expensive lesson. Do not call this number again. I hung up. I walked into my garden under a canopy of stars. The air was clean and cool. I could feel James there, not as a ghost of grief, but as a presence of peace. His roses were blooming, their scent filling the night. The foundation was secure. The structure was sound. I had not just won a legal battle. I had reclaimed my soul. I was, for the first time since his death, whole. I was Maeve. Not just a mother, not just a widow. I was myself. And I was free. They say the best revenge is a life well lived. I found that to be only half true. The best revenge is a life well lived on your own terms, while the architects of your pain are left to drown in the consequences of their own greed. My story isn't about destroying my child. It's about the painful, necessary surgery of cutting out a cancer to save the patient. And I, the patient, have never been healthier. If this story of ultimate betrayal and triumphant, cathartic justice resonated with you, if it lit a fire in your belly and made you want to stand up and cheer for every underdog who ever fought back, then do me a favor. Smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell. I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me, when was the moment you knew you had to fight for yourself? No matter the cost, your story has power. Share it. Until next time, remember, never, ever underestimate a quiet woman with a long memory and nothing left to lose. We are the most dangerous players in the game.